The gunshot echoed across the plains as Bethany Vance ran for her life, her heart pounding against her ribs like a wild mustang desperate to break free. The year was 1876, and the Arizona Territory showed no mercy to a woman alone at dusk with 3 outlaws on her trail. Her chestnut hair had come loose from its pins, streaming behind her as she fled toward the canyon, praying for a miracle that seemed as distant as the setting sun painting the western sky blood red. Bethany had never expected her journey west to end like this. After losing her father to consumption back in Boston, she had answered her uncle's invitation to join him at his trading post near Prescott. The stagecoach robbery had left all other passengers dead, and only her quick-thinking diving into a ravine when the shooting started had spared her life. For 2 days she had been moving on foot, hiding from the murderous gang who realized they had a witness to their brutal crime. "I can hear her," a gruff voice called out, much closer than she had feared. "The boss wants no witnesses." Bethany stumbled over a rock, pitching forward onto the hard, packed earth. Pain shot through her ankle as she tried to rise. Tears blurred her vision as she crawled behind a cluster of boulders, knowing her time had run out. The sound of approaching horses paralyzed her with terror. The first rider appeared silhouetted against the sunset, rifle raised. She closed her eyes, whispering a prayer, when the unmistakable crack of a rifle split the air. The outlaw toppled from his saddle without a sound. 2 more shots followed in quick succession, and shouts of confusion erupted from the remaining pursuers. Bethany pressed herself against the cool stone, making herself as small as possible. "You boys picked the wrong woman to chase," came a low, steady voice from somewhere above her. The remaining outlaws fired blindly toward the voice, but another shot rang out, followed by a cry of pain. Hoofbeats thundered away as the survivors fled. "They're gone, madam," the voice said, closer now. "You're safe." Bethany opened her eyes to see a tall figure sliding down the rocky slope toward her. He wore a dust-covered duster and a wide-brimmed hat pulled low, a Winchester rifle held comfortably in his hands. When he reached her, he knelt, keeping a respectful distance. "Aaron Jameson, madam," he said, tipping his hat. "Looks like you've had yourself a rough day." His face was weathered by sun and wind, with a strong jaw darkened by stubble and eyes the color of the sky just before a storm. He couldn't be more than 30, but those eyes had seen enough for a lifetime. "Bethany Vance," she managed, her voice shaky. They killed everyone on the stagecoach. I've been running for days." Aaron nodded, his expression grim. "Stagecoach robbery near Bitter Creek." "Heard about it in town, didn't know there was a survivor." He glanced at the darkening sky. "Night's coming, we need to find shelter. Can you walk?" When Bethany tried to stand, pain shot through her ankle again and she collapsed with a cry. Without hesitation, Aaron scooped her into his arms, lifting her as though she weighed nothing. "My horse is just up the ridge," he said. "Hold tight." The magnificent black gelding stood patiently where Aaron had left him. With gentle hands, Aaron placed Bethany in the saddle before swinging up behind her. She stiffened at the unexpected proximity. "Sorry for the impropriety, Miss Vance, but we need to put some distance between us and this place. Those men might come back with friends." As they rode into the gathering darkness, Bethany fought against exhaustion. She hadn't slept properly since the attack, fear keeping her alert through cold nights alone on the plains. "Where are we going?" she asked, struggling to keep her eyes open. "I have a small camp about an hour's ride from here. Not much, but it's hidden and defensible." The gentle swaying of the horse and the warmth of the body behind her made staying awake increasingly difficult. Aaron seemed to sense this, his arm tightening slightly around her waist. "Stay with me, Miss Vance. Not much farther now." Aaron's camp was nestled in a small box canyon, hidden by a narrow entrance that could be easily defended. A simple lean-to had been constructed against the rock wall, with a small fire pit and minimal supplies, evidence of a man accustomed to traveling light and fast. After helping Bethany down from the horse, Aaron quickly built a small fire, the flickering light revealing more of his features. A thin scar ran along his jawline, and his hands were calloused from years of hard work. "Let me take a look at that ankle," he said, helping her to sit on his bedroll. His touch was surprisingly gentle as he removed her boot and examined the swollen joint. "Not broken, just a bad sprain. I'll wrap it for you." As he worked, Bethany studied him. "Are you a lawman, Mr. Jameson?" A shadow passed over his face. "Used to be. Was a deputy marshal up in Wyoming Territory for 5 years. He wrapped a strip of clean cloth around her ankle with practiced efficiency. "These days, I'm just a man who tries to help where I can." Aaron prepared a simple meal of beans, jerky, and coffee. The hot food revived Bethany's spirits somewhat, but the events of the past days were catching up with her. Her eyelids grew heavy. "You should rest," Aaron said, noticing her fatigue. "You're safe here." But as exhausted as she was, when Bethany laid down on the bedroll Aaron had insisted she use, sleep refused to come. Every time her eyes closed, she saw the faces of the dying passengers, heard the gunshots that had shattered her world. Her body tensed at every small sound from the darkness beyond their camp. Aaron sat by the fire, rifle across his knees, watching her with understanding in his eyes. "I can't," she whispered finally. "I'm afraid to close my eyes. Every time I do, I'm back there watching them die." Aaron nodded slowly, his expression softening. "Then I'll keep watch till morning," he said simply, adjusting his position to sit more comfortably. "Nothing's going to harm you while I'm here, Miss Vance. You have my word." Something in his steady gaze and the quiet confidence of his words eased the tightness in Bethany's chest. For the first time in days, she felt the possibility of safety. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice catching. "Rest now," Aaron replied. "Dawn's still a long way off." As promised, Aaron kept his vigil through the night. Whenever Bethany's eyes flickered open in panic, she found him there, a steady presence in the firelight, his gaze alternating between her and the darkness beyond. Eventually, exhaustion claimed her, and she fell into a dreamless sleep. She woke to the smell of coffee and the soft light of dawn filtering into the canyon. Aaron was tending the fire, his movements efficient and practiced. He looked up as she stirred, offering a small smile that transformed his weathered face. "Morning, Miss Vance. How's that ankle feeling?" Bethany gingerly tested her foot, finding the pain diminished. "Better, thank you." She pushed herself to sitting, suddenly aware of her disheveled appearance. Her once fine traveling dress was torn and stained, her hair a tangled mess. Yet Aaron treated her with the same respect he might show a lady in a drawing room. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked, accepting the tin cup of coffee he offered. "I've learned to get by with little sleep," he replied, settling across from her. "Comes with the territory." As they shared a breakfast of hardtack and dried fruit, Aaron outlined their situation. They were about 3 days' ride from Prescott, where her uncle's trading post was located. The outlaws who had attacked the stagecoach were part of the notorious Reeves gang who had been terrorizing the territory for months. "Your uncle is Samuel Vance?" Aaron asked, seeming surprised when she confirmed it. "I know of him. Good man. Treats the local tribes fairly, which is rare enough these days. You know my uncle," hope brightened Bethany's voice. "We've crossed paths. I occasionally bring him information about trouble brewing in the territory." Aaron took a long sip of his coffee. "Miss Vance, I should be honest with you. Those men will be looking for you. I'm no longer a marshal, but I've been tracking the Reeves gang for personal reasons. They're dangerous men." "What personal reasons?" Bethany asked, then quickly added, "I'm sorry, that's not my business." Aaron was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. "They killed my brother 2 years ago. He was a stagecoach driver, left behind a wife and 2 children." His voice was level, but Bethany could see the pain etched in the lines around his eyes. "I promised my sister-in-law I'd see justice done." "I'm so sorry," Bethany said softly. Aaron nodded once, then stood. "We should get moving. I'd like to put more distance between us and where we met yesterday." As they prepared to leave, Aaron helped Bethany onto his horse, then led them carefully out of the canyon. Once on open ground, he swung up behind her, and they set off at a steady pace toward the west. The day passed in relative quiet, with Aaron pointing out landmarks and sharing brief stories about the territory. Bethany found herself studying his profile when he wasn't looking, the strength in his jawline, the alertness in his eyes that never seemed to miss anything. Despite her circumstances, she felt an unexpected comfort in his presence. By midday, the sun beat down mercilessly. Aaron guided them to a small creek shaded by cottonwoods where they stopped to rest and water the horse. "May I ask you something, Mr. Jameson?" Bethany said as they shared a simple lunch. "Aaron, please." He smiled briefly. "And yes, you may. Why were you in that particular place yesterday?" "It seems providential." Aaron considered his answer carefully. "I'd been following reports of the Reeves gang moving south. When I heard about the stagecoach robbery, I headed that way, looking for tracks." He paused. "I didn't expect to find a survivor." "Well, I'm very grateful you did," Bethany said quietly. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Aaron looked away first, standing abruptly. "We should keep moving. I'd like to reach White Rock Crossing by nightfall. There's a small way station there where you can rest properly." As they continued their journey, Bethany became increasingly aware of Aaron's solid presence behind her. The strength of his arm around her waist when the terrain grew rough. The clean, masculine scent of him, leather and sage, and something uniquely his own. It was disconcerting how safe she felt with this man she'd known for barely a day. By late afternoon, dark clouds had gathered on the horizon, and the distant rumble of thunder warned of an approaching storm. Aaron urged the horse to a faster pace, but the rain caught them an hour from their destination, a sudden downpour that soaked them within minutes. "There's an old line shack just over that ridge," Aaron shouted over the storm, pointing to a rocky outcropping ahead. "We'll shelter there." The abandoned herder's shack was little more than 4 walls and a roof, but it was dry and offered protection from the increasingly violent storm. Aaron quickly cared for his horse in the small lean-to attached to the shack, then joined Bethany inside. The interior was dusty but intact, with a small stone fireplace and a rickety table. Aaron worked efficiently to start a fire, his wet shirt clinging to the broad planes of his shoulders as he moved. Bethany tried not to stare, but found her gaze drawn to him repeatedly. "You should get out of those wet clothes," Aaron said, not looking at her as he built up the fire. "I have a spare shirt in my saddlebag. It'll be too large, but it's dry." He retrieved the shirt and handed it to her, then turned his back politely. "I'll step outside while you change." "In this storm," Bethany protested. "Just turn around, I'll be quick." With fumbling fingers, she managed to undo the buttons of her sodden dress. The simple act of changing into Aaron's clean, dry shirt felt indescribably intimate. The fabric carried his scent, enveloping her as she pulled it over her head. "I'm decent," she said softly. Aaron turned, and something flashed in his eyes before he quickly looked away. The shirt hung nearly to her knees, the sleeves rolled up several times to free her hands. "The fire should warm you up," he said, his voice slightly rough. "I'll hang your dress to dry." As the storm raged outside, they sat before the fire, the small space creating a strange bubble of intimacy. Aaron had removed his wet duster and rolled up his sleeves, revealing strong forearms marked with old scars. He spoke little, but his eyes frequently found hers across the flames. "Tell me about Boston," he said eventually. "What made you leave?" Bethany tucked her legs beneath her, grateful for the warmth of the fire. "After my father died, there was nothing left for me there. My mother passed when I was young, and father's business partners. They had plans for me that didn't align with my own wishes." "What plans?" Aaron asked, his brow furrowing. "Marriage to one of their sons, a merger of families rather than businesses." Bethany stared into the flames. "When Uncle Samuel's letter arrived inviting me to join him in Arizona, it seemed like providence. A chance to begin again in a place where I wouldn't be seen merely as a possession to be traded." Aaron nodded slowly. "The West can be harsh, but it does offer freedom to those willing to brave its challenges." "And you? What's your story, Aaron Jameson? How does a Wyoming deputy marshal end up tracking outlaws in Arizona?" Aaron was quiet for so long that Bethany thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "I was born in Pennsylvania. My father was a blacksmith, taught me and my brother the trade. But after the war, things were difficult. We headed west, looking for opportunity." He poked at the fire, sending sparks up the chimney. "I ended up with a badge, James, with a stagecoach whip. We both found our callings." Thunder crashed outside, making the small shack tremble. "When James was killed, I couldn't let it go. My superior officer ordered me to stand down, said we didn't have jurisdiction to pursue the Reeves gang across territorial lines, so I turned in my badge." Aaron's jaw tightened. "I've been tracking them ever since. Alone. For 2 years." Bethany asked, unable to mask her dismay. Aaron's smile was grim. "Justice moves slowly out here, Miss Vance. Sometimes it needs a helping hand." "Bethany," she corrected softly, "please, after all you've done for me, I think we can dispense with formalities." Their eyes met across the fire, and something shifted in the air between them. Aaron cleared his throat and stood, moving to check the door. "Storm's not letting up," he observed. "We'll have to stay here tonight." The realization that they would be spending the night alone together in this tiny shack sent a flush of heat to Bethany's cheeks that had nothing to do with the fire. She was suddenly, acutely aware of the impropriety of their situation, her in nothing but his shirt and her undergarments, him with no chaperone or proper introduction. Yet she felt no fear, only a strange anticipation that made her heart beat faster. "I'll take the floor," Aaron said, seemingly reading her thoughts. "You can have my bedroll." "You didn't sleep last night," Bethany protested, "and the floor is cold and hard." "I've slept in worse places," he replied with a slight smile. As night deepened and the storm continued its assault on the small shack, Bethany lay on Aaron's bedroll, listening to his steady breathing from where he rested against the wall near the door, rifle within easy reach. Despite the warmth of the fire, she shivered, memories of the stagecoach attack creeping back as the darkness pressed in. "Aaron," she whispered. "Yes." He was immediately alert, proving he hadn't been asleep. Would you talk to me, just until I fall asleep?" She hated the tremor in her voice. "I don't want to close my eyes yet." In the firelight, she saw him shift, moving closer until he sat near the edge of the bedroll. "What would you like me to talk about? Anything. Your home, your travels, your voice. It helps keep the memories at bay." Aaron was quiet for a moment, then began to speak in a low, steady voice. He told her about the Wyoming mountains in spring, about the first horse he'd ever broken, about the stars over the desert on clear nights. His voice washed over her like a balm, and gradually Bethany felt her eyelids grow heavy. "I'll keep watch, Bethany," he said softly as sleep began to claim her. "You're safe with me, I promise." As consciousness slipped away, Bethany felt the gentle touch of calloused fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face. Morning brought clear skies and a changed landscape. The storm had left everything washed clean, the desert plants vibrant with moisture. Aaron insisted on checking Bethany's ankle before they set out, his fingers gentle as he unwrapped the bandage. "The swelling's down considerably," he noted with approval. "You heal quickly." "Good stock," Bethany replied with a small smile. "My father always said the Vances were hardy people." Her dress had dried overnight, though it was badly wrinkled. Aaron politely stepped outside while she changed, then helped her mount his horse. They set off toward White Rock Crossing with the rising sun warm on their backs. The small way station came into view by mid-morning, a cluster of simple buildings surrounding a dusty yard. Aaron tensed visibly as they approached, his posture alert. "Something's wrong," he muttered, his hand moving to rest on his revolver. "There should be more activity." As they drew closer, Bethany saw what had concerned him. The station was deserted, with no horses in the corral and no smoke from the chimney. Aaron guided his horse in a wide circle around the buildings before approaching cautiously. "Stay on the horse," he instructed, dismounting and drawing his revolver. "If there's trouble, ride east along the creek bed. Don't stop until you reach the next ranch." Before Bethany could protest, Aaron moved toward the main building, his movements fluid and silent. She watched anxiously as he disappeared inside, her heart pounding in her chest. Long minutes passed before he emerged, a grim expression on his face. "Reeves's men were here," he said, holstering his weapon. "They left a message they know a woman survived the robbery. They're searching every settlement between here and Prescott." Fear clutched at Bethany's throat. "The people who lived here, gone. Looks like they fled when the gang approached. There's no blood, so they likely escaped unharmed." Aaron's expression was troubled as he looked up at her. "This changes things. We can't take the main trail to Prescott now, it's too dangerous." "What will we do?" Bethany asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. Aaron was quiet for a moment, considering their options. "There's another way through Apache territory. It's longer and more difficult terrain, but the Reeves gang won't follow us there." Apache territory. Bethany couldn't hide her alarm. The newspapers back east were filled with stories of Apache raids and cavalry conflicts. "The situation's more complicated than what you've likely read," Aaron said, reading her expression. "I've done some scouting for the Army. I know the land, and I have an understanding with some of the Apache bands in this region." "An understanding?" Aaron's mouth quirked in a half-smile. "I've traded fairly with them, respected their boundaries, and once helped return a child who had been taken by settlers. Chief Neshe remembers his friends." He remounted behind her, turning the horse southward. "It's our best chance, Bethany. You trust me?" The question hung in the air between them. Bethany studied his face, the earnest blue eyes, the determined set of his jaw. In the short time she'd known him, this man had saved her life, tended her injuries, and stayed awake through the night to keep her safe. "Yes," she said simply. "I trust you." Something flickered in Aaron's expression, surprise, perhaps, or gratitude. He nodded once, his arm tightening slightly around her waist as they set off toward the distant mountains that marked the beginning of Apache lands. The journey grew more arduous as they left the relatively flat desert for increasingly rugged terrain. Aaron guided his horse expertly through narrow passes and along precipitous trails, always alert for signs of danger. They spoke little, conserving energy for the difficult path. But Bethany was acutely aware of Aaron's solid presence behind her, his breath warm against her neck when the trail narrowed, and he leaned closer to steady her. By late afternoon, they had ascended into pine-covered foothills where the air was cooler and sweet with resin. Aaron finally called a halt beside a small spring, helping Bethany down from the horse. "We'll rest here for a while," he said, stretching his back. "Give the horse a chance to recover." As Aaron tended to the gelding, Bethany drank deeply from the spring, then splashed water on her face. The cool liquid was reviving, washing away some of the dust and fatigue of their journey. When she looked up, she found Aaron watching her, an unreadable expression in his eyes. "What is it?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. He shook his head slightly. "Nothing, just, you remind me of someone." "Who?" Aaron looked away. "My brother's wife, Clara. She had that same determined look when they first headed west, like no matter what the frontier threw at her, she'd face it head on." "Is that a compliment, Mr. Jameson?" Bethany asked, a small smile playing at her lips. "The highest one I know how to give," he replied seriously. The moment stretched between them, taut with unspoken feelings, until Aaron cleared his throat and turned back to his horse. "We should keep moving. I'd like to reach the valley by nightfall." As they continued their journey, Bethany found herself thinking about Aaron's life, the loss of his brother, his abandoned career, his solitary pursuit of justice. For 2 years, he had tracked the men who destroyed his family, with no companionship but his horse and his memories. The loneliness of it ached in her heart. "What will you do after?" she asked suddenly as they navigated a particularly steep section of trail. "After you find justice for your brother." Aaron was quiet for so long that Bethany thought he hadn't heard her. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "I haven't allowed myself to think that far ahead. For 2 years, there's been only the next day, the next lead, the next camp." He adjusted his grip on the reins. "My sister-in-law has asked me to come home to help raise my nephews. Perhaps I will." "They must miss you," Bethany said softly. "James Jr. is 7 now. He was just 5 when his father died. Little Samuel is 4, he barely remembers James." Aaron's voice grew rough. "I send them what money I can, right when possible. It's not enough." "You're doing what you believe is right," Bethany offered. "That counts for something." "Does it?" Aaron's question hung in the air, unanswerable. They rode in silence after that, each lost in their own thoughts. The sun was low on the horizon when they crested a ridge, and the valley opened before them, a hidden paradise of green meadows and scattered groves, with a clear stream winding through its center. "It's beautiful," Bethany breathed, taking in the unexpected vista. "And safe, for tonight at least." Aaron guided the horse down toward the valley floor. "We're on the edge of Neshay's territory. His people consider this valley sacred. No blood is to be shed here." They made camp near the stream, beneath a canopy of ancient cottonwoods. Aaron built a small fire and prepared a meal from their dwindling supplies. As darkness fell, the valley came alive with the sounds of night creatures, the hoot of an owl, the distant yip of coyotes, the chorus of frogs along the stream. Bethany sat close to the fire, wrapping Aaron's spare blanket around her shoulders against the evening chill. Across the flames, Aaron cleaned his revolver with methodical care, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. "How did you learn to shoot like that?" she asked, remembering how he had dispatched her pursuers with deadly accuracy. Aaron's hands stilled. "My father taught me the basics. The war taught me the rest." He reassembled the weapon with swift, sure movements. "I was 17 when I enlisted, too young to understand what I was getting into." "You fought for the Union?" Bethany asked, though she was certain of the answer. Aaron nodded. "Pennsylvania, 83rd. Saw action at Antietam, Fredericksburg, Gettysburg." His voice was flat, reciting facts rather than memories. Came home different. We all did. Bethany had been just a child during the war, sheltered in her Boston home from the worst of its horrors. She'd seen the returning soldiers, though men with empty sleeves and wooden legs, others whole in body but broken in spirit. Is that why you came west? To leave the memories behind? Aaron's smile held no humor. You can't outrun memories, Bethany. I came west because I couldn't fit back into the world I'd left, out here. He gestured to the vast darkness beyond their fire. Out here, the rules are simpler. A man is judged by his actions, not his family name or the cut of his coat. I think I understand that, Bethany said quietly. In Boston, I was never just myself. I was Thomas Vance's daughter, a potential match for this family or that business connection. My thoughts, my wishes, they didn't matter. Aaron studied her across the fire, his gaze intense. And what are your wishes, Bethany Vance? What do you want from this new life in the West? The question caught her off guard. She had left Boston to escape an unwanted marriage, had accepted her uncle's invitation out of necessity rather than choice. What did she truly want? Freedom, she said finally. The chance to make my own decisions, to build something that belongs to me alone. She met Aaron's gaze steadily. I want to matter for who I am, not whose daughter or wife I might be. Something like approval flickered in Aaron's eyes. Then you've come to the right place. The West isn't kind, but it does offer second chances to those brave enough to claim them. As the fire burned low, Bethany found herself fighting sleep once again. The beauty of the valley couldn't entirely dispel her fear of the dreams that might come, visions of blood and violence that waited in the darkness of her mind. Aaron noticed her struggle. Without a word, he moved to sit beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him but not so close as to be improper. I'll keep watch again tonight, he said softly. Rest, Bethany. You're safe here. His presence beside her was comforting in a way she couldn't articulate. Gradually, her fear receded, replaced by a different kind of awareness of his steady breathing, of the subtle scent of leather and gunpowder that clung to him, of the careful distance he maintained between them despite their solitude. Aaron. She murmured, sleepiness making her bolder than she might otherwise be. Yes, thank you for finding me, for everything. In the firelight she saw his expression soften. Sleep now, he said gently. We have a long journey ahead tomorrow. As Bethany drifted toward sleep, she felt the light touch of Aaron's hand adjusting the blanket around her shoulders. The simple gesture carried a tenderness that followed her into dreams not of violence this time, but of open skies and possibility. Dawn broke clear and bright over the valley. Bethany woke to find Aaron already up, returning from the stream with fresh water. His hair was damp, his face freshly shaved, giving him a more youthful appearance than she had yet seen. Good morning, he greeted, setting the water bucket down. How did you sleep? Better, Bethany admitted, stretching stiff muscles. No dreams. Aaron's smile was warm. Good. There's time for you to wash up before we leave. I'll prepare breakfast. The cold stream water was invigorating, washing away the grime of travel. Bethany did her best to make herself presentable, combing her fingers through her tangled hair and straightening her travel-worn dress. When she returned to camp, Aaron had coffee brewing and was frying strips of salt pork over the fire. They ate quickly, aware of the journey still ahead. As Aaron packed up their minimal camp, Bethany noticed him pause, his posture suddenly alert as he scanned the ridge above them. What is it? She asked, following his gaze but seeing nothing. We're being watched, he said quietly, continuing his packing as if nothing were amiss. Don't make any sudden movements. Fear coiled in Bethany's stomach. The Reeves gang, Aaron shook his head slightly. Apache scouts, they've likely been tracking us since we entered the valley. What should we do? Bethany tried to keep her voice steady, remembering the newspaper stories of Apache raids. Nothing. They're assessing whether we're a threat. Aaron secured the last of their supplies to his saddle. When we leave, we'll ride slowly toward the southern pass. That leads to Neshay's main camp. If we're allowed to pass, it means they've decided we're not enemies. The tension in the air was palpable as Aaron helped Bethany mount, then swung up behind her. As promised, he guided the horse at a deliberate walk toward the southern end of the valley, making no attempt to conceal their direction or purpose. They had nearly reached the pass when 3 mounted figures appeared on the trail before them. The Apache warriors sat their ponies with easy grace, their expressions impassive as they blocked the narrow path. Aaron halted their horse, then slowly raised his right hand, palm outward. He spoke several words in a language Bethany didn't recognize, his pronunciation careful and deliberate. The center rider, a man with a weathered face and piercing eyes, studied Aaron for a long moment before responding in the same language. Aaron nodded, then replied again, his tone respectful but firm. After what seemed an eternity, the Apache leader made a gesture with his hand, and the 3 warriors moved aside to clear the path. "We can proceed," Aaron said quietly to Bethany, "but slowly, no sudden movements." As they passed between the warriors, Bethany felt their eyes on her assessing, curious. She straightened her spine and met the center rider's gaze directly, offering a small nod of acknowledgement. Something that might have been approval flickered in the man's eyes before he turned his pony, and the 3 disappeared back into the landscape as silently as they had appeared. "What did you say to them?" Bethany asked, when they were alone again on the trail. "I told them we sought safe passage to Prescott, that we meant no harm to their people." Aaron guided the horse carefully along the narrowing path. "I mentioned my previous dealings with Chief Neshay, and that we were fleeing from men who had shed innocent blood. And they believed you." Just like that, Aaron's chuckle was low against her ear. "The Apache have been watching us since yesterday afternoon. They know we're only 2 travelers, that we've hunted no game in their territory, that we've treated their land with respect. And they have no love for men like the Reeves gang, who kill indiscriminately." The path wound through increasingly rugged terrain, climbing steadily into pine-covered hills. By midday, they had reached a high meadow where Aaron called a halt to rest the horse. As Bethany stretched her legs, a movement at the forest edge caught her attention. She froze, her breath catching in her throat as a small group of Apache emerged from the trees: 2 men, 3 women, and several children. Aaron stepped forward, again raising his hand in greeting and speaking in their language. One of the men responded, gesturing toward Bethany with what seemed to be a question. "They're curious about you," Aaron explained quietly. "I told them you're under my protection." To Bethany's surprise, one of the Apache women approached, carrying something wrapped in soft buckskin. She stopped a few paces away, studying Bethany with frank curiosity before extending the package. "It's a gift," Aaron translated. "She says a woman traveling these trails needs strength." Hesitantly, Bethany accepted the offering, unwrapping it to find dried meat, berries, and what looked like small, hard cakes of some ground grain. "Thank her for me," Bethany said, touched by the unexpected kindness. Aaron spoke to the woman, who nodded and replied with a small smile before rejoining her group. After a brief exchange with the men, the Apache departed as silently as they had appeared, melting back into the forest. "What was that about?" Bethany asked, still holding the food bundle. "They're from Neshay's band," Aaron explained. "They're heading to their summer camp in the high country. The woman who gave you the food said you have courage in your eyes, but that courage needs nourishment. Bethany looked down at the simple gift with new appreciation. Will we meet more of them? Likely. They'll spread word of our passing. If we're fortunate, we might receive an escort through the most difficult parts of their territory. Aaron checked the horse's saddle. We should continue. There's a place to camp about 2 hours ahead near a waterfall. As they rode on, Bethany found herself reconsidering many of her preconceptions about the West and its peoples. The Apache she had met showed none of the bloodthirsty savagery depicted in Eastern newspapers. Instead, she had seen dignity, curiosity, and an unexpected generosity toward strangers in need. The stories we hear back east, she began hesitantly. About the Apache, about the West in general, they don't tell the whole truth, do they? Aaron was quiet for a moment. There's violence on all sides out here, Bethany. I won't pretend otherwise, but there's also honor and courage in unexpected places. His voice grew grim. The greatest brutality I've witnessed in these territories has often come from men who call themselves civilized. They reached the promised waterfall as the sun began its descent toward the western horizon. The small cascade tumbled down a rocky face into a clear pool, surrounded by pines and flowering shrubs. It was a place of unexpected beauty in the harsh landscape. Aaron made camp with practiced efficiency, building a small fire and preparing a meal supplemented by the Apache woman's gift. The dried meat was tough but flavorful, the berries sweet with a tartness that complemented the rich protein. As darkness fell and stars appeared in the clear mountain sky, Bethany found herself studying Aaron covertly. In the firelight, the hard planes of his face softened, revealing glimpses of the younger man he must have been before war and loss had shaped him. She wondered what he had been like then, if he had laughed more easily, if his eyes had held more light than shadow. "You're staring, Miss Vance," Aaron said without looking up from the coffee he was brewing. The formal address was deliberate. She knew a gentle reminder of propriety. Heat rushed to Bethany's cheeks. "I apologize, I was just thinking about." His eyes met hers across the fire, and the intensity in them made her breath catch, about how people change, how circumstances shape us. Bethany wrapped her arms around her knees. "I wonder sometimes who I might have become if my father hadn't died, if I'd never left Boston." Aaron considered this, turning the battered tin cup in his hands. "We're all formed by our choices as much as our circumstances. You could have accepted that arranged marriage, stayed in the world you knew. Instead, you chose uncertainty and possibility." "As did you," Bethany replied softly. "You could have remained a marshal, followed orders, let others seek justice for your brother." A shadow crossed Aaron's face. "Some choices don't feel like choices at all. They're more like inevitabilities." He set his cup down. "When James was killed, there was never a question of what I would do. It was as if a path opened before me and I could only follow it. And now, is that path leading you somewhere or just continuing endlessly?" The question hung between them, weighted with implications neither was ready to address. Aaron stared into the fire, his expression unreadable. "I don't know," he admitted finally. "For 2 years there's been only the hunt. I haven't allowed myself to think beyond it." Bethany sensed there was more he wasn't saying, doubts, perhaps, or fears about what would remain when his quest for vengeance was complete. She wanted to reach across the space between them, to offer comfort or understanding, but something in his posture warned against it. This was a wound still too raw to bear another's touch. Instead, she said simply, "Well, I'm grateful your path crossed mine, whatever its ultimate destination." Aaron looked up, surprise evident in his expression before it softened into something warmer. "As am I, Bethany. As am I." That night, as they prepared to sleep, Bethany found herself dreading the darkness less than before. The nightmares that had haunted her were receding, replaced by a growing sense of strength. Still, when Aaron moved to take his customary position as sentinel, she found herself reluctant to see him go. "You need sleep too," she said. "You can't keep watch every night." Aaron settled his hat more firmly on his head. "I'm accustomed to it." "At least rest for a while," Bethany insisted. "I can wake you if I hear anything." His resistance was evident, but exhaustion was beginning to show in the lines around his eyes. Finally, he nodded. "A few hours, then. Wake me at midnight. The moon will be directly overhead." Aaron stretched out nearby, his rifle within easy reach. Within minutes, his breathing had deepened into sleep, the tension finally easing from his body. Bethany watched over him, struck by how different he looked in repose, younger, vulnerable in a way he never allowed himself to be when awake. The night passed peacefully. When the moon reached its zenith, Bethany hesitated, reluctant to disturb Aaron's much-needed rest. She decided to let him sleep a little longer, maintaining her own vigilant watch over their small camp. The responsibility felt strange but empowering, a small return for all he had done for her. Eventually, Aaron stirred on his own, sitting up alert and reaching for his rifle before fully awake. "The moon's well past its peak," he observed, looking at Bethany with a mixture of concern and something like admiration. "You were supposed to wake me." "You needed the rest," she replied simply. "And I wasn't afraid to stay awake, not tonight." Aaron studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You're stronger than you know, Bethany Vance." His words settled around her like a benediction, warming her more than the dying fire. In that moment, something shifted between them, a recognition of equality, of mutual respect that transcended the circumstances of their meeting. Morning brought clear skies and a sense of renewed purpose. Aaron estimated they were 2 days' hard ride from Prescott if they continued through Apache territory. The alternative, returning to the main trails, would take longer and expose them to the risk of encountering the Reeves gang. "I think we should continue this way," Bethany said when Aaron presented the options. "I trust your knowledge of these lands, and the Apache have shown us no hostility." Aaron nodded his approval. "It's the decision I'd make as well. The terrain ahead is difficult but passable. We'll need to be careful with the horse on some of the steeper sections." They set off as the sun cleared the eastern mountains, following a narrow trail that wound through increasingly rugged country. By midday, they were traversing a precipitous path along a canyon wall, the ground falling away hundreds of feet to their right. Aaron dismounted to lead the horse, one hand steady on the reins, the other ready to support Bethany if needed. The path narrowed further until it was barely wider than the horse itself. Aaron stopped, assessing the situation. "We should both walk for this section," he decided. "It's too dangerous to ride." He helped Bethany dismount, keeping her on the canyon side of the trail rather than near the drop. They proceeded cautiously, Aaron leading the horse, Bethany following close behind. The wind gusted around them, tugging at their clothing and sending small pebbles skittering over the edge. They had nearly reached a wider section of trail when it happened, a piece of the path crumbling beneath the horse's hoof. The animal reared in panic, nearly losing its balance. Aaron reacted instantly, pushing Bethany against the canyon wall while struggling to control the frightened gelding. For one heart-stopping moment, both man and horse teetered on the edge of the precipice. Bethany cried out, certain she was about to witness Aaron's death. Then, with a supreme effort, Aaron pulled the horse back from the brink, the animal's hooves scrambling for purchase on the crumbling trail. "Stay back," Aaron shouted as Bethany moved to help. He gradually calmed the horse, speaking in low, soothing tones until the animal stood trembling but stable. When they had safely reached the wider section of trail, Bethany found her legs would no longer support her. She sank to the ground, her whole body shaking with delayed fear. Aaron knelt beside her, his face pale beneath his tan. "Are you hurt? You nearly died," Bethany whispered, unable to stop the tremor in her voice. "You nearly fell." "But I didn't," Aaron said gently. He reached out, hesitating briefly before taking her hand in his. His calloused palm was warm against her cold fingers. "I'm right here, Bethany. We're both safe." The simple touch steadied her, grounding her in the present moment rather than the terrifying what might have been. Without thinking, Bethany leaned forward and wrapped her arms around Aaron's shoulders, holding him tightly as if to reassure herself of his continued existence. Aaron stiffened in surprise, then gradually relaxed, his arms coming around her in a tentative embrace. For a brief, suspended moment, they held each other on that precarious mountain path, the barriers of propriety temporarily forgotten in the aftermath of shared danger. It was Aaron who finally pulled away, though his hands remained on her shoulders. "We should continue," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "There's a more sheltered area ahead where we can rest properly." The remainder of the day's journey passed without incident, but something had changed between them. The near miss on the cliff had stripped away pretense, revealing feelings that neither had been willing to acknowledge. They spoke little as they made camp that evening, yet Bethany was acutely aware of Aaron's gaze following her, of the careful distance he maintained even as something in his expression suggested he wished to be closer. As night fell, Aaron built a small fire within a circle of stones. They ate a simple meal, conserving their dwindling supplies. Aaron had become increasingly preoccupied as the day progressed, his gaze frequently scanning their surroundings with growing concern. "What's troubling you?" Bethany finally asked. "Beyond the usual dangers, I mean." Aaron hesitated, clearly weighing how much to share. "We're being followed," he said at last. "Have been since this morning." Fear clutched at Bethany's heart. "The Reeves gang?" "No, Apache, I think, but not the same band we encountered earlier." Aaron poked at the fire, sending sparks spiraling upward. "They're staying well back, watching rather than approaching. It could be nothing, just warriors patrolling their territory, but I don't like the feeling of it." "Could they be hostile?" Bethany asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's possible. Not all Apache bands are friendly to whites with good reason." Aaron's expression was grim. "The Army has been pushing them hard this past year, breaking treaties, forcing them onto reservations." "What should we do?" "Stay alert. Keep moving toward Prescott." Aaron checked his revolver methodically. If they wanted to attack, they could have done so already, especially at the narrow pass. The fact that they're just watching suggests they're still deciding what we are. Bethany nodded, trying to absorb this new concern without succumbing to fear. After a moment, she asked, "Could we leave them a gift, as a sign of respect or peaceful intentions?" Aaron looked up, surprise evident in his expression. "That's actually a good thought. It's a common practice among some tribes." He considered for a moment. "I have a pouch of tobacco. It's valuable out here, and would be recognized as a peace offering." Before dawn the next morning, they left the tobacco prominently displayed on a flat stone near their camp, along with a small portion of their remaining food. Aaron added one of his silver shirt buttons as a personal token before they departed. Whether the gesture had any effect, they couldn't immediately tell. The feeling of being watched continued as they traveled, though no warriors revealed themselves. The terrain gradually began to change, the high mountain passes giving way to gentler slopes covered with juniper and pinyon pine. By midday, Aaron confirmed they had left Apache territory and were now approaching lands more frequently traveled by white settlers. The knowledge brought both relief and a strange regret to Bethany. Relief at the reduced threat, regret at leaving behind the wild beauty and freedom of the mountains. "We should reach Prescott by tomorrow afternoon," Aaron said as they paused to rest the horse. "Your uncle's trading post is on the eastern edge of town." The statement, simple as it was, sent a jolt through Bethany. In the intensity of their journey, she had almost forgotten its purpose to deliver her safely to her uncle. Once that was accomplished, Aaron would presumably continue his hunt for the Reeves gang. Their paths would diverge. The thought left an unexpected hollowness in her chest. "What will you do then?" she asked, trying to keep her tone casual. "Continue tracking the gang." Aaron was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. "I've been thinking about that," he admitted finally. 2 years is a long time to chase shadows, Bethany, and the Reeves gang knows I'm after them now. They'll be more careful, harder to find." Hope fluttered tentatively in Bethany's heart. "Are you considering another path?" Aaron turned to face her fully, his blue eyes serious. "I made a promise to my sister-in-law, to my nephews. For 2 years I've told myself that avenging James was the best way to keep that promise." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "But I'm beginning to wonder if there might be better ways to honor his memory than adding more violence to the world." Bethany stepped closer, emboldened by something in his expression. "What other ways?" "Building something. Protecting those who need protection." Aaron's gaze held her steadily. "Living, rather than just surviving." The air between them seemed charged with possibility. Bethany found herself holding her breath, waiting for words she wasn't sure he was ready to speak. The moment was shattered by the distant sound of gunfire. Aaron reacted instantly, pulling Bethany toward the shelter of nearby rocks. "Stay down," he ordered, drawing his rifle and scanning the landscape. More shots rang out, accompanied by shouts. The sounds came from beyond a low ridge to the west, not directed at them, but concerning nonetheless. "What is it?" Bethany whispered. "Trouble," Aaron replied grimly. "Wait here. I'm going to take a look." Before she could protest, Aaron had moved away, keeping low as he approached the ridge. Bethany watched anxiously as he reached the top and flattened himself against the ground, peering over. Long minutes passed before Aaron returned, his expression dark. "Stagecoach robbery," he said tersely. 5 men, the Reeves gang from their description. They've already killed the driver and guard. There are passengers still inside." Horror washed over Bethany. "We have to help them. It's too dangerous. We're outnumbered and they have positions of advantage." Aaron's jaw clenched. "Our best hope is to circle wide around them, get to Prescott, and bring back the law." "By then everyone will be dead," Bethany protested. "Just like the stagecoach I was on." Aaron flinched as if struck. His eyes met hers, conflicted and pained. "What would you have me do, Bethany?" "I can't fight 5 armed men alone." "You don't have to fight them all. Just create a distraction, give the passengers a chance to escape." Bethany clutched his arm. "Please, Aaron, I couldn't live with myself if we rode away, knowing what will happen." Something shifted in Aaron's expression, resolution replacing doubt. He nodded once, his decision made. "Stay here with the horse. If I'm not back in 20 minutes or if you hear sustained gunfire, ride east as fast as you can. Don't stop until you reach Prescott." "I'm coming with you," Bethany insisted. "No." Aaron's voice was firm. "I can move faster alone, and I need to know you're safe." His expression softened slightly. "Please, Bethany, I can't focus on what needs to be done if I'm worried about you." The logic was undeniable, though it chafed at Bethany's newfound sense of strength. Reluctantly, she nodded. 20 minutes. Then I'm coming after you." Aaron's brief smile held a warmth that belied the danger of the moment. "You are the most stubborn woman I've ever met, Bethany Vance." He checked his weapons one final time. "If anything happens to me, tell my sister-in-law Clara that I finally understood what James meant about finding something worth living for." Before Bethany could respond to this cryptic statement, Aaron was gone, moving silently through the underbrush toward the ridge. The minutes crawled by with excruciating slowness. Bethany strained to hear any sounds of conflict beyond the ridge, but there was only an ominous silence. She paced beside the horse, torn between respecting Aaron's wishes and following her instinct to help. 15 minutes had passed when the first shots rang out, a rapid succession of rifle fire from a position well to the west of where the stagecoach had been attacked. Bethany recognized Aaron's strategy. Immediately, he was drawing the outlaws away from their victims, giving the passengers a chance to flee. More shots followed, moving gradually northward. Aaron was leading his pursuers away from both the stagecoach and Bethany's position. The cleverness of the plan did nothing to ease her fear for him, one man against 5, in unfamiliar terrain. 20 minutes stretched to 25. Bethany made her decision. Leading Aaron's horse, she moved cautiously toward the ridge, staying low as he had shown her. When she reached the top, she could see the stagecoach below, tilted slightly on a broken wheel. There was no sign of the outlaws, but no movement from the coach either. Taking a deep breath, Bethany led the horse down toward the stagecoach, alert for any danger. As she approached, the door of the coach swung open and a terrified face peered out, a middle-aged woman, her bonnet askew. "Are they gone?" the woman whispered. "For now," Bethany replied, quickly tying the horse to the coach. "Is anyone hurt inside?" "My husband's been shot in the arm, and there's a young man with a bullet grazed to his head. The banker is unharmed." The woman glanced fearfully in the direction of the continuing gunfire. "Who's out there? We heard more shooting." "A friend," Bethany said simply. "He's drawing them away to give us a chance to escape. Can the wounded travel?" With the help of the uninjured banker, they managed to get the wounded man and his wife onto Aaron's horse. The young man with the head wound insisted he could walk. "Head for Prescott," Bethany instructed. "Stay off the main trail and keep to the trees where possible. Tell the marshal what happened here." "What about you?" the banker asked. "You can't stay here alone." "I'm not leaving my friend," Bethany said firmly. "Now go before they come back." As the small group departed eastward, Bethany turned toward the sound of the gunfire, which had grown more sporadic. Aaron had led his pursuers well away from the stagecoach, but the diminishing frequency of shots concerned her. Was he running out of ammunition, or worse? Armed only with determination, Bethany moved carefully through the scattered junipers, following the sounds of conflict. She had covered perhaps half a mile when she heard a shout of triumph that chilled her blood. "We got him. Jameson's down." Bethany froze, her heart seeming to stop in her chest. Then, pushing aside her fear, she crept forward until she could see a small clearing ahead. 4 men stood in a loose circle, their attention focused on something or someone on the ground. The 5th outlaw lay motionless some distance away, evidence of Aaron's deadly accuracy. "Been chasing us for 2 years, one of the men said, spitting on the ground near what Bethany now recognized as Aaron's prone form. "Not so dangerous now, are you, Marshal?" Aaron was alive. Bethany could see the slight movement of his chest, but a dark stain spread across his shirt, and his face was alarmingly pale. His revolver lay just beyond his outstretched hand, where it had fallen when he was shot. "Boss wants him alive," another outlaw reminded the first. "Says he wants to look Jameson in the eye when he kills him, for what he did to Pete back in Bitter Creek. He's bleeding pretty bad. Might not make it to camp. Then we better move fast." As the outlaws argued about how to transport their prisoner, Bethany frantically considered her options. She had no weapon, No realistic way to overpower 4 armed men. Yet she couldn't simply watch as they took Aaron away to be executed. A memory surfaced Aaron's steady voice as he taught her to signal for help during their journey. 3 shots, evenly spaced. The universal distress call in the territories. Moving as silently as she could, Bethany circled through the trees until she reached the spot where Aaron's rifle had fallen. The outlaws were preoccupied with binding Aaron's hands, their horses tethered some distance away. Taking a deep breath, Bethany raised the rifle, aimed at the sky, and fired 3 deliberate shots. The effect was immediate. The outlaws whirled, weapons drawn, scanning the trees. "What the hell was that?" one demanded. "Someone's out there," another replied, his voice tight with concern. "It's a signal," the apparent leader realized. "Could be lawmen or Apache. We need to move now." The 4th man was already backing toward their horses. "What about Jameson?" A moment of indecision passed before the leader cursed. "Leave him. He's as good as dead anyway. We can't risk getting caught with him." Within minutes, the outlaws had mounted and ridden away, heading west at a gallop. As soon as they were out of sight, Bethany ran to Aaron's side, falling to her knees beside him. "Aaron, Aaron, can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered, then opened, revealing eyes clouded with pain but still alert. "Bethany," he whispered, "told you to. Stay back." "And I told you I was stubborn," she replied, fighting back tears as she examined his wound. A bullet had torn through his left side, leaving an ugly wound that bled freely. "I need to stop this bleeding." Working quickly, Bethany tore strips from her petticoat to create a bandage. Aaron winced as she pressed it firmly against the wound, but made no sound of complaint. "The stagecoach passengers?" he asked through gritted teeth. "Safe, on their way to Prescott." Bethany secured the makeshift bandage as best she could. "Can you stand? We need to get you to help." With Bethany's support, Aaron managed to rise to his feet, though he swayed dangerously. "My horse." "With the passengers, but the outlaws left theirs tied just over that rise." Bethany pointed to where she had seen the horses. It took all their combined strength to reach the tethered horses. Aaron was alarmingly weak, his face gray with pain and blood loss. When they finally reached the animals, he had to rest against a tree while Bethany untied the most docile-looking of the 4. "You need to ride," she told him firmly. "I'll help you up, and then I'll take one of the other horses. We can leave the remaining 2. It will slow down the outlaws when they realize they are missing." Getting Aaron into the saddle was a struggle that left them both breathless. Once he was mounted, Bethany quickly selected another horse for herself, a sturdy bay mare with a white blaze. "Stay with me, Aaron," she urged as she saw his head begin to droop. "Just a little longer. We need to put some distance between us and this place before we can rest." They rode eastward at the fastest pace Aaron could manage, which was little more than a walk. His wound had begun to bleed through the bandage, and he was clearly fighting to remain conscious. Bethany stayed close beside him, ready to catch him if he should fall. They had covered perhaps 2 miles when Aaron suddenly slumped forward in the saddle. Bethany grabbed his reins, halting both horses as she reached out to steady him. "Aaron, stay with me." His eyes opened with visible effort. "Can't. Keep going," he mumbled. "Need to rest." Bethany scanned their surroundings desperately. They were in open country with little cover, vulnerable if the outlaws returned to search for their horses. In the distance, however, she spotted a small cluster of rocks with what appeared to be a shallow cave at its base. "Just a little farther," she pleaded. "There's shelter ahead." The small cave was barely deep enough to accommodate them both, but it offered protection from the elements and concealment from casual observation. With the last of his strength, Aaron helped Bethany gather brush to hide the entrance before collapsing onto the ground inside. Bethany worked quickly to make him as comfortable as possible. using her shawl as a pillow for his head. When she checked his wound, her heart sank. The bleeding had slowed but not stopped, and the skin around the injury was hot to the touch. "It needs cleaning," she murmured, more to herself than to Aaron, "and proper bandaging." Aaron's eyes opened, clearer than they had been. "Saddlebags," he said weakly. "The horse might have supplies." The outlaws' saddlebags yielded unexpected treasures: a half-full bottle of whiskey, a relatively clean shirt that could be torn for bandages, and most valuable of all, a small tin of what appeared to be a salve made from pine resin and other herbs. Bethany recognized it as a remedy she had seen her father use for wounds likely purchased or stolen from natives in the region. Returning to the cave, Bethany set to work. She used the whiskey to clean the wound, wincing in sympathy as Aaron hissed in pain. "Sorry," she murmured, "but it needs to be done." Aaron's hand found hers, squeezing weakly. "I know, you're doing fine." The bullet had passed clean through, which was both a blessing and a concern: less risk of infection from a lodged bullet, but twice the wound to heal. After applying the salve and binding the injury with strips from the clean shirt, Bethany helped Aaron drink a small amount of the whiskey for the pain. Night was falling by the time she finished. Outside the cave, she hobbled the horses where they could graze, then used the remaining daylight to gather what firewood she could find. The night would be cold, and Aaron needed warmth to fight the blood loss and shock. Inside the cave, she built a small, smokeless fire as Aaron had taught her, positioning it near the entrance where the smoke could escape without giving away their location too obviously. In its flickering light, she studied Aaron's face, pale but composed, his eyes following her movements with a clarity that reassured her. "You saved my life," he said quietly as she settled beside him. "Again." Bethany shook her head. "I think we're even on that count." She adjusted his makeshift pillow. "How's the pain? Manageable?" His smile was strained but genuine. "I've had worse. You should rest. Tomorrow we'll continue to Prescott, get you proper medical attention." Aaron's hand found hers in the dimness. "Bethany." His voice was serious. "If I don't make it, don't," she interrupted fiercely. "Don't you dare talk like that, Aaron Jameson. You're going to be fine." "Listen to me," he persisted. "If something happens, I need you to know." He paused, seeming to gather his strength. "These past days, traveling with you, protecting you, they've meant more to me than anything has in a very long time. You've reminded me that there's more to life than vengeance." Bethany felt tears burning behind her eyes. "Then you have to live, Aaron. Live and remember that lesson." His fingers tightened around hers. "I want to. For the first time in 2 years, I truly want to." His eyes held hers in the firelight, vulnerable in a way she had never seen before. "Because of you." The simple declaration hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning neither was ready to fully articulate. Bethany found herself leaning closer, drawn by something stronger than propriety or caution. "Then promise me you'll fight," she whispered. "Promise me you won't give up." "I promise," Aaron replied, his voice barely audible. His free hand rose to touch her cheek, a feather-light caress that sent warmth cascading through her despite the gravity of their situation. "Now that I've found something worth living for." Bethany stayed awake long into the night, tending the fire and watching over Aaron. His breathing remained steady, though occasionally troubled by pain. When fever set in near midnight, she bathed his face with water from her canteen, murmuring reassurances as he twisted restlessly. "Stay with me," she pleaded when his fever peaked, pressing a cool cloth to his burning forehead. "I need you to stay with me, Aaron." Whether he heard her or not, Aaron's condition began to improve toward dawn. His fever broke, leaving him sweating but cooler to the touch. Exhausted, Bethany finally allowed herself to doze, her hand still clasped in his. She woke to the sound of birdsong and the sensation of fingers gently stroking her hair. Opening her eyes, she found Aaron awake, his gaze clearer than it had been since his injury. "Good morning," he said softly. "You stayed awake all night." Bethany sat up, immediately checking his bandages. "How do you feel?" "Weak, sore, but better." Aaron winced as he shifted position slightly. "The fever's gone." "You did good work, Bethany." Relief washed over her. "Do you think you can travel?" "We should try to reach Prescott today if possible. With your help, I believe I can." Aaron's smile held a warmth that had nothing to do with his recent fever. "I made you a promise, remember? I intend to keep it." Getting Aaron mounted was a struggle that left them both breathless, but they managed it with determination and careful planning. Bethany rode close beside him as they set off toward Prescott, ready to support him if his strength should fail. The journey was slow and arduous. Aaron's wound pained him with every movement of the horse, though he made no complaint. They stopped frequently to rest, each time with Bethany checking his bandages and urging him to drink water. By mid-afternoon, they crested a rise to see Prescott spread before them in the valley below a growing settlement of wooden buildings surrounding a central plaza, with scattered homesteads and ranches in the surrounding countryside. "We made it," Bethany breathed, relief making her voice unsteady. Aaron nodded, his expression a mixture of pain and determination. "Your uncle's trading post should be on the eastern edge near the creek." They approached the town slowly, drawing curious glances from those they passed. Bethany was acutely aware of their appearance, Aaron pale and blood-stained, herself disheveled and riding an outlaw's horse. The trading post was a substantial building of hewn logs with a wide porch and a painted sign declaring Vance Trading Company. As they approached, a gray-haired man emerged from the doorway, shading his eyes against the afternoon sun. "Uncle Samuel," Bethany called hesitantly. The man's expression transformed from curiosity to shock, then joy. "Bethany, my God, is that you?" He hurried down the steps, then stopped short as he took in their condition. "What happened?" "We heard the stagecoach was robbed, that there were no survivors." "It's a long story, Uncle. This is Aaron Jameson. He saved my life, but he's been shot and needs a doctor immediately." Everything happened quickly after that. Samuel Vance called for help, and willing hands eased Aaron from his horse and carried him inside. A messenger was sent for the town doctor while Bethany briefly explained what had happened. "The stagecoach passengers we helped, did they make it to town?" she asked anxiously. "They arrived this morning," her uncle confirmed. "The marshals already sent a posse after the Reeves gang based on their description." He shook his head in wonder. "To think you survived that ambush, then evaded those killers for days." "You're your father's daughter." Sure enough. The doctor arrived promptly, a no-nonsense woman named Dr. Alina Hayes, who assessed Aaron's wound with practiced efficiency. "He's lost a lot of blood, but the bullet passed clean through, and there's no sign of serious infection," she reported after her examination. "With proper care and rest, he should recover fully." Bethany felt tears of relief spring to her eyes. "Thank you, doctor." "Don't thank me yet, doctor." Hayes replied with a hint of a smile. "He'll be a difficult patient, I can tell. Men who are used to caring for themselves always are." She gathered her supplies. "I've left instructions with your uncle. Mr. Jameson needs complete rest for at least a week, preferably 2. After the doctor departed, Bethany sat beside Aaron's bed in the small room her uncle had prepared. Aaron had fallen into an exhausted sleep, his face peaceful for the first time in days. "You care for him," her uncle observed quietly from the doorway. Bethany didn't look away from Aaron's face. "Yes," she admitted simply. "I do." Samuel Vance studied his niece thoughtfully. Aaron Jameson has quite a reputation in these parts. Former marshal, now something of a bounty hunter, though he's never collected on the bounties. They say he's been tracking the Reeves gang since they killed his brother. He has, Bethany confirmed. For 2 years, her uncle nodded slowly. That kind of single-minded purpose changes a man. It's not an easy road back from that dark place. He's already finding his way back, Bethany said softly, and I intend to help him if he'll let me. Samuel Vance smiled, laying a gentle hand on his niece's shoulder. I think you may be exactly what he needs, Bethany, and perhaps he's what you need as well. He squeezed her shoulder affectionately. Your father would be proud of the woman you've become. The days that followed took on a rhythm of their own. Bethany divided her time between caring for Aaron and getting to know Prescott and her uncle's business. Samuel Vance had built a prosperous trading post that served both the white settlers and the native peoples of the region, dealing fairly with all who came to trade. Aaron proved to be, as Dr. Hayes had predicted, an impatient patient. By the 3rd day, he was insisting on sitting up. By the 5th, he was attempting to walk around his room despite Bethany's protests. You'll reopen your wound, she scolded as she found him standing by the window, gazing out at the bustling street. I'm healing fine, Aaron countered, though he allowed her to help him back to bed. I've never been good at sitting still. Well, you'll need to learn, Bethany replied firmly, or Dr. Hayes will tie you to the bed herself. She threatened as much yesterday. Aaron's laugh was unexpected and wonderful, a sound Bethany realized she had rarely heard during their journey. It transformed his face, erasing years of hardship, and revealing the man he might have been in a kinder world. You're formidable when you're concerned, Miss Vance, he teased, using the formal address that had become something of a private joke between them. Only when my patient is stubborn, Mr. Jameson, she retorted, unable to suppress her answering smile. As Aaron's strength returned, their conversations grew longer and deeper. He spoke of his childhood in Pennsylvania, of his brother James and sister-in-law Clara, of his nephews whom he hadn't seen in 2 years. Bethany shared memories of her father, of growing up in Boston society, of her dreams for a different kind of life. What will you do now? She asked one evening as they sat on the small porch behind the trading post, watching the sunset paint the distant mountains gold. When you're fully recovered, I mean. Aaron was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. The marshal says the posse tracked the Reeves gang to the border but lost them in Mexican territory. They'll be back eventually. Men like that always return to what they know. Bethany felt her heart sink at his words, fearing he would resume his solitary hunt. So you'll continue tracking them? No. Aaron's answer was firm, surprising her. He turned to meet her gaze directly. 2 years is enough, Bethany. I've paid my debt to James's memory. It's time to honor him in a different way by living the kind of life he would have wanted for me. Hope bloomed in Bethany's chest. What kind of life is that? One with purpose, with connection. Aaron hesitated, then reached for her hand, his touch gentle but sure. With love, if I'm fortunate enough to find it. The word hung between them, charged with possibility. Bethany's fingers tightened around his, her pulse quickening. And have you found it, I mean? Aaron's eyes held hers, vulnerable yet certain. I believe I have. If she'll have me, a broken-down former lawman with little to offer but his heart and his hands. She might consider that the greatest wealth a man could possess, Bethany replied softly, her voice unsteady with emotion. Especially if his heart is as true and his hands as gentle as yours have proven to be. Something shifted in Aaron's expression, hope replacing doubt, joy eclipsing the shadow of his past. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned forward until their foreheads touched. I love you, Bethany Vance, he whispered. I think I began falling for you that first night when you were afraid to close your eyes and I promised to keep watch till morning. I love you too, Bethany answered, the words feeling both momentous and entirely natural. You've shown me strength I didn't know I possessed, and a kind of freedom I never thought possible. Their first kiss was gentle, a promise rather than a demand, sweet with the knowledge of all they had overcome to reach this moment. When they finally parted, Aaron's smile held all the warmth and light that had been missing when they first met. Your uncle might have something to say about this, he remarked, though his hand remained clasped with hers. Bethany laughed softly. Uncle Samuel has been all but pushing us together since you regained consciousness. I think he approves. The weeks that followed were a time of healing and new beginnings. Aaron's wound mended steadily, and with it, the deeper wounds of his spirit. He wrote to his sister-in-law Clara, sharing his changed circumstances and his hope for the future. Her reply arrived promptly, joy at his decision to leave vengeance behind, and an open invitation to visit with his new lady friend whenever they wished. As summer turned toward autumn, Prescott celebrated the completion of its new courthouse with a town gathering. It was Aaron and Bethany's first public appearance as a couple, though their relationship had become something of an open secret in the close-knit community. "Miss Vance, may I have this dance?" Aaron asked formally, extending his hand as the small band struck up a waltz. Bethany curtsied playfully before accepting. "I'd be delighted, Mr. Jameson." As Aaron guided her through the steps of the dance, Bethany marveled at how far they had come from their first meeting, she terrified and fleeing for her life. He a solitary figure driven by vengeance. Now they moved together in perfect harmony, their shared journey having forged a connection deeper than either had thought possible. "I've been thinking," Aaron said as they circled the makeshift dance floor. "Your uncle mentioned he's been wanting to expand the trading company, perhaps open another post near the new mining operations to the north." "He has," Bethany confirmed, "but he's concerned about finding someone trustworthy to manage it." Aaron nodded thoughtfully. "I spoke with him yesterday. He offered me the position, said he needed someone who understood both worlds, who could deal fairly with settlers and natives alike." Bethany's steps faltered slightly in surprise. "What did you say?" "I said I'd need to consult with my future wife before making such a decision." Aaron's eyes held hers steadily, a question in their depths. "Assuming she agrees to become my wife, that is." The world seemed to narrow to just the two of them, the music and other dancers fading into insignificance. "Aaron Jameson," Bethany said softly, "is that a proposal?" "It is." His smile was gentle, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "I love you, Bethany Vance. I want to build a life with you, not one defined by the past, but by the future we could create together." Joy welled up in Bethany's heart, so intense it brought tears to her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." They were married on a clear October day, with the mountains blazing with autumn color behind them. Samuel Vance gave the bride away, his eyes suspiciously damp beneath his bushy eyebrows. Dr. Hayes attended as Bethany's matron of honor, while the town marshal stood as Aaron's best man. To everyone's surprise, a small delegation of Apache from Chief Nashay's band appeared at the edge of the gathering, bearing gifts of beautifully woven blankets and an intricately crafted silver concho belt for the groom. The presence of these unexpected guests and Aaron and Bethany's evident welcome of them caused much comment among the townspeople, but set a tone of reconciliation that would characterize the couple's future work. After the ceremony, as friends and family celebrated around them, Aaron drew Bethany aside for a moment of quiet. "Happy?" he asked, his hands gentle on her waist. "More than I ever imagined possible," she replied truthfully. Rising on tiptoes, she kissed him softly. "And you? Any regrets about giving up your solitary ways?" Aaron's laugh was warm and genuine. "Not a single one, Mrs. Jameson, though I do have one confession to make." "Oh," Bethany raised an eyebrow, curious. "That first night when you were afraid to close your eyes and I promised to keep watch till morning." Aaron's expression grew tender. "I was already falling for you then, though I wouldn't admit it even to myself. I stayed awake not just to protect you, but because I couldn't bear to look away from you." Bethany felt her heart swell with love for this man who had traveled so far both literally and figuratively to find his way to her. "Then I'm glad I was afraid," she said softly. "It gave you time to see me, and me time to recognize the good man behind the grim facade." Aaron pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers. "I'll still keep watch for you, Bethany, every day for the rest of our lives. Not because you need protection anymore, but because loving you has become the purpose I was searching for all along. And I'll watch over you," Bethany promised, "to make sure you never lose your way again." Their future together unfolded in ways neither could have predicted that fateful day when a desperate woman fled across the Arizona desert, and a haunted man found something worth living for. The northern trading post thrived under their management, becoming known throughout the territory as a place of fair dealing for all. Their home, built on a hill overlooking the settlement, became a haven not only for themselves but for travelers of all backgrounds, a place where differences were set aside and common ground discovered. In the spring following their marriage, Clara arrived from Wyoming with Aaron's nephews, James Jr. and Samuel. After a joyful reunion, she announced her intention to stay in the Arizona territory, having sold their Wyoming property. The boys quickly adapted to their new home, thriving under their uncle's guidance and Bethany's gentle care. The Reeves gang's reign of terror finally ended not through violence, but through the justice system Aaron had once served. When the gang attempted to rob the Prescott Bank the following year, they were captured by the town marshal with unexpected assistance from Aaron, who happened to be in town on business. Aaron testified at their trial, finding closure in seeing justice served through law rather than vengeance. In time, Aaron and Bethany welcomed children of their own, first a daughter, Elizabeth, with her mother's chestnut hair and her father's determined blue eyes. Then twin sons, Thomas and William, who inherited their mother's quick wit and their father's steady hands. Through the years that followed, through the territory's growth and eventual statehood, through droughts and prosperity, through all the challenges of building a life on the frontier, one tradition remained constant in the Jameson household. Each night before sleep claimed them, Aaron would kiss his wife and whisper, "Rest easy, love. I'll keep watch till morning." And Bethany, secure in the knowledge of a love that had transformed them both, would close her eyes without fear, knowing that whatever the future might hold, they would face it together.